Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
And what's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another exciting episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And even when we're on a book tour, even when Carm and I were in Boston last night, just got back off an Amtrak, we were ready to get divorced, although we are mother and son. I just posted some interesting videos on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. We took it as far as we could. True story, just now as we were leaving Newark Penn Station, and I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in New Jersey, but Tommy Scoville, as we were leaving Penn Station, my mother was on my last nerve. We walked past two New Jersey Transit police officers with the flak jackets on, their weapons, and I went up to them very nicely. I said, "Is it possible to please detain my mother? She's on my last nerve." And my mother said, "How dare you?" So that's what it has come to, Tommy. But we had an amazing time last night. We were in Newton, Massachusetts in the evening. We were in Cambridge during the day. We had an amazing turnout. Last night, I would say, was close as you can get to standing room only. People came from New Hampshire, Tommy, your old state, all the way. It blows my mind that people did that. I'm so appreciative. And there you see some of the photos. Really cool bookstore. Shout out to Hummingbird Books. We had a great crowd. And on the bottom photo, all the way to the right, you can see the legend, the living legend, Dr. Ann Burgess, introducing us. That was a huge honor and a highlight. And then we signed a ton of books. And Carm was out way past her bedtime. She is being a trooper. We got back, like I said, to New Jersey. And this coming Sunday, we are in New York City at the Museum of Jewish Heritage at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. But today, time for another show. I am delirious. By the way, I went to, I had like 2-3 hours of spare time. And guess where I went? I went to Canton, Massachusetts, home of the Karen Reed trial. I went to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. I went to CF McCarthy's. I talked to a lot of people. I went to the courthouse, and the COE is going to put this all together for you. Someone just said my face looks normal again. I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or an insult, but either. And there's Jose Rojas. How are you, Joe? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I have to get you on my phone for some reason my laptop doesn't pick it up, so I was able to use my phone.
It's great. If you can flip your phone the other way, if that's possible, that'd be awesome. Much better. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
I went to Canton, Massachusetts, where this wild trial is going on, and that town of Canton, Massachusetts is split right down the middle. And the COE is going to put together, it is the Karen Reed trial tour coming to you on Monday. So you'll have that. And it's always amazing when you go to visit a place as a reporter, as opposed to just talking about it. You get a real sense of the people. I met this awesome guy straight out of Central Casting in the bar. By the way, for those of you, I told you I'm delirious. One of the most interesting things, in my opinion, somehow in our book, we ended up discussing J-Lo and Ben Affleck. And Carm, in the book, which was published weeks ago, said that there's no way the relationship is lasting. It'll be over within X amount of months. And today it is announced that they have split. So Carm is literally an entertainment soothsayer. She predicted the future in a book from weeks ago. Best Widor as opposed to Black Widor. She says Widder, but I refuse to say that. So what's up, Republic of Ireland? Right about now, Cardell's like, what did I get myself into? But the reason we are gathered here today is there is yet again more news about Charlie Adelson, and I've got some scoop on Wendy Adelson as well, which we are going to dive into. So without further ado, best guest here, Tommy Scoville. As you know, he was raised in an upper middle class family. He skied professionally. The guy can still do backflips on ski slopes. He retired, became a public speaker. He got wealthy, and then he got hooked on drugs, and then his life kind of took a downward spiral. He turned to bank robbery, ended up behind bars, did time in were you in state or just federal, Tommy?
I did a state sentence, and then I did 2 federal sentences.
Then you've got in the red, Joe Rojas, the voice of reason. He has a bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in political science from SUNY Old Westbury. He worked State Department of Corrections for Florida from 94 to 95 and the Federal Bureau of Prisons from 95 to 2023. He just retired and told me he's a little antsy, but Joe Rojas, I'll tell you what, you can write a book and then you'll be running around like a lunatic like I am. And last but not least, and oh, there he is. Here he is. We've got one more here. Gunner, my man Gunner's in the house. He's hey, how you doing, Gunner? Gunner Allen Lindblom. He's a former criminal and mafia enforcer. He spent 13 years in prison for extortion, armed robbery, bank robbery, and 17 other capital crimes. He has his own YouTube channel now. He has come a long, long way. The channel is called My Thing, Tales of a Reformed Gangster. He's also the author of To Be a King, Volumes 1 and 2. I Could Only Dream, To Be a King, Volumes 1 and 2. And Gunner looks like he could smash your head into a wall, and he probably has done that a couple times, but the guy is super sweet, and he has turned his life around. And last but not least, the new best guest on our show, Cardell Sims. After doing state and federal prison time, Cardell Sims walked out of the gates with a blueprint that he put together while incarcerated. Inmate to inspiration is his story, his journey, as he shares with you valuable information that he learned and applied to free himself from his own self-destructive behavior. That's very interesting, Cardell. Both my parents, my dad has since passed. My dad was a psychiatrist. My mother is retired social worker. And my mother always used to say to me, I hate self-destructive behavior. She still says that. I hate self-destructive behavior. It looks like that is behind all of you guys now. So welcome to one and all. Tommy Scoville is the OG of this group. So out of deference, prison style, I'm going to go to him first so he doesn't beat me up. Tommy Scoville, big news here. Charlie Adelson, in the middle of the evening, a couple of nights ago, is whisked out of the state of Florida, and he is transferred to South Dakota, of all places. South Dakota. We have confirmed he's at a state penitentiary in South Dakota, not a federal pen, even though there is one there. And he's somewhere called at a place called the Jameson Annex in Sioux Falls. Why not the federal system? Why the state? And what does this all mean?
Well, they could have very often those guys will end up in the people who they're having problems with violence and people are attacking them. Very often they will move them to the states, to the federal facility. With this one, it's pretty early on. Normally they'll try to exhaust other remedies before they get to the feds. That's always been the way I've seen it. But I'm not surprised. I think we talked about this on one of the shows. He shot his mouth off pretty big before he got sent up. There's a lot of people that are pretty upset with him. So I'm not shocked by this. And I don't know how much it's going to help him, but I'm not shocked by this.
Yeah. By the way, when we have this many people on, we get a little audio interference. So I have you all muted. And if you can just unmute, I would appreciate it. Gunner, to you, what is the process here? He's in, and I don't know if you were transferred around a lot in your time, but so here he is in a place called Columbia Correctional, which is one of the worst prisons, 7th worst ranked in the state of Florida. And they just moved him to South Dakota. And we'll get into all the nuances as to why. A big part of it has to do with a gang wanting or having put a hit out on him. But how does this work? Does he get a knock on his cell in the middle of the night and they say, hey, we're taking off?
They won't tell him, but here's what's likely will happen. Then I'll give you a quick analogy or comparison with me. But like, I'm friends with White Boy Rick. Some of you probably heard of White Boy Rick, right? So, and when he was in prison in Michigan for years, I don't know, 10, 11, 15, the gangs kept trying to extort him. And, he's just a lone white dude, not in a gang. They think he's got a bunch of money, so they try extorting him. Eventually, they took him to the Fed prison system, and they hid him in there for years. You know what I'm saying? He was kind of in protective custody. He was safe. So that is likely probably what they're doing. With me, for example, one time when I first started writing my books, by the way, my wife put sample chapters of my book on Facebook. Excuse me, my friend put sample chapters of my books on Facebook. That's how I met my wife, believe it or not, who worked for a publisher. But I started getting fan mail from random people, and I started getting a lot of it, 10, 15 JPEGs a day, emails. And the warden found out about it. Deputy warden called me in and asked me, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. He's like, you can't have a Facebook. I'm like, why not? There's no policies. There's no law that says I can't have a Facebook. And he was a gay black dude, right? And he was like real effeminate. And he's like, well, you got to stop it. And I'm like, why? He's like, because you can't. Do you want to go home from prison? I had 5.5 years left. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go home, but you can't stop me from this. You better stop. So I said, no. I said, are we done here? Because, you can't tell me to stop somebody. He's like, who's managing it? My cousin. Well, that's a conspiracy. Conspiring to do what? Connect with some girls from the neighborhood? Whatever. Get some mail. And so, that actually led me to meeting my wife, this woman who stumbled across the sample chapters of my book, worked for a publisher, and then we became pen pals. She fell in love with me after she read my book and waited 7 years. And I married her the day after I got out. She's still my wife today. She's downstairs. But that deputy warden, out of spite, 3 days later, I get a knock on my cell. Yes, it's middle of the night, 3 a.m. They said, pack up, you're riding out. And I'm like, what? I'm back. And so basically, out of spite, they rode me out to this is the second worst prison in America at the time. Kinross State Penitentiary in Michigan, Kinross. Second most violent prison in America. And they stuck me in that murder scene. Hell, it was just guys getting butchered every day. They didn't even close the yard when guys would get stabbed. They just call off the cart and people keep playing basketball. And the big thing is blood everywhere all the time. And anyways, it was really horrible. And there was guys, I saw a guy get murdered there, and just that guy got stabbed up like 50 times right in front of me in the weigh pit, and he stumbled away and fell. And the cops were in the guard shack 50 yards away. It's the wintertime, so they're in there trying to keep warm. They don't even notice there's a man down, and nobody tried to help the dude or whatever, because you don't know what to be.
Connor, how do you keep yourself out of that? Like, how do you stay away from getting in that mix?
Very hard to do. I did it. I give God the glory. I give all the credit to God, my Lord and Savior. But I would pray every day that people would leave me alone and stay out of my way, and I'll stay out of theirs. And then I was a big, tough guy, so I think it's prison. These guys will all agree. Prison's a predatory environment. So they don't look at a guy like me. It's like a wolf. It doesn't go after a full-grown moose. It goes after a baby moose or an injured moose or a weak one. I'm a big, tough guy with a reputation. I went to 8 different prisons over 13 years. They moved me to 8 different prisons. And wow. I'm not joking. I get off the bus. By the time I get to the unit and unpack and get to the chow hall a few hours later, whatever, the whole compound knows who I am, because I had mob ties and I had a reputation in the street for being, badass, tough with my fist and shooting and robbing and gangster stuff. In there. So guys see me from the street like, you know who that guy is? And they go tell, and they would always go to the gang leaders, the heads of the Moabites and Islam and all these, and they say, this guy, Al, for no games, just, this is who he is. And then on the yard, I was friends with some biker guys, like high-level biker gang dudes, and as soon as I hit the yard, they, what's up, Al? Listen, let me introduce you to the leaders of these gangs. And I'd walk through, and they'd introduce me. I'd shake their hands. We kind of nod. We now acknowledge who we are. And so if I ever had any problems, and I did from time to time have problems, I would go to them and say, hey, man, this guy's being disrespectful, man. I listen, you got to handle him, or I will, or whatever. And I hung around a couple guys that are straight lunatics too. I had a friend named Rob Matty who went to war with the Nation of Islam for 12 years. He stabbed like 30 of them, man. And they were trying to kill him back and forth. And then the Nation of Islam eventually are the ones who called the truce with this guy. They're like, enough is enough, man. We're losing too many men, and it's just not worth it. So then he'd walk the yard alone. And nobody wanted to go near him because they didn't want any beef with the Nation of Islam, but I was cool with him. But anyways, that's kind of how I stayed.
What happened to him? What happened to him? Is he still locked up?
Oh my God, this guy! Are you kidding me? If you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story about this guy. This guy's he's in there for murder. He was a hitman. a Chaldean guy. He's Chaldean, which is the Arab. They have a Chaldean gangster mafia in Detroit, a real mafia. You can look it up, Chaldean mafia. A bunch of gangsters, very dangerous, very badass. He was contracted to kill a dude. The guy who did it with ended up telling on him. So I met this guy. It's a crazy story. While I'm in the county jail, right? I'd heard of him. I'd heard of him on the street. But while I'm in the county jail, been in solitary confinement. I've been in the hole for about 6 or 7 months, right? This guy comes walking in one day, and there's an empty cell next to me, the little 5-man rocks, old school with bars. This is old school stuff. And the guy walks in, and they say to him, "You want your hour out?" Because you get an hour to walk up and down the rock for. He says, "You want your hour out?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll take it." So he gets out. But when he says that, I hear his accent. So he walks by my cell. I said, "Hey, man, you Chaldean?" He stops looking. And he's a good-looking guy, a big, tough guy, muscle-bound guy, not huge, but just in shape. He says, "Yeah, how you know?" I said, "I recognize your accent, bro. I know Chaldean voice." And we start talking. I'm like, "Oh, I know this guy. You know that guy, whatever." So then he goes in his cell, and he comes back out with what I think is a cigarette, like a roll-up cigarette. Now, we're in the hole. You can't even smoke in the jail. So the guy comes out, lights a cigarette, and he walks up to my cell, and he says, "You want to hit this?" And I'm like, "No, I don't smoke, bro." You know what I'm saying? I'm not a smoker. Then I smell it, and I'm like, "Wait, whoa, it's weed." So I'm like, "Well, let me get this." So I said, "I'll hit that." So he goes, "Keep that. That's for you." Now I've been in the hole for like 7 months. So the guy gives me a joint. I smoke this little joint. I am so high, and I'm all like super spastic and hyper and making him laugh, and we're cracking up. And I remember him saying 2 things. The first person ever said "game recognized game." He said that to me. And he says, "I can tell you're a real one, bro. I like you." That's what he said. So I go to prison, and like 9 years later, I've been looking to run into this dude. I don't, what I'm saying? I know he's in there. He was in the county jail because he was a witness on a stabbing for his boy, who I would later know his guy's named Hurricane, this white dude. He stabbed some dude, and now they threw the knife, and he didn't get away. Anyway, so he was going to be a witness on his behalf. And the county that the prison was in was this county jail where I was. So they rid him back. That's why he was there. He came from prison with some weed keistered, and anyway, so I don't see the guy for 9 years. 9 years later, I'm in the bleachers at a softball game in Kinross Prison, this very violent prison where I was. And he comes walking up, and I recognize him. I said, "Hey, man." He looks at me. He don't recognize me. I'm like, "What's up, man? Remember from the county jail?" He starts laughing. He's like, "You crazy mother effer," right? So I didn't know all this story about him with the Nation of Islam stabbing, like 30 stabbings and battles. It all started over a shower. Is stupid. And then it just escalated into this guy was a stabber, bro. He would try to kill you. These are very, very dangerous dudes, the guys he hung around with. So now he's telling me this story on the yard because I said, "I wrote these books and everybody loves them. I want you to read the book." So I give him To Be a King, that one, right? And he reads it. And he's blown away. So now he's like, likes me. So we're on the yard, walking up and down the yard with this guy. He starts telling me this freaking whole story. And I'm wondering why there's 800 guys like staring at us. It's just me and him, right? This dangerous lunatic dude that stabbed 30 guys from the Moabites, from the Nation of Islam. And they're all staring at him. And he's telling me this whole evolution, this 12-year battle that he stabbed up all these guys and they stabbed him. And I'm looking around going, "Man, dude, this might not be a good look for me, dude." Anyways, he's a great look.
Is he still locked up?
Yeah, doing life. Rod Matty is his name.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Cardell, your first time here, I don't know what you're willing to share or not, but I know you were incarcerated. You care to can you share for what?
Yeah, I was incarcerated actually 5 times. Part of a gang activity. Most of my cases was drugs and guns. I got sentenced to 19 years in the Missouri Department of Correction. At 23 years old, I went to trial and lost. Got sentenced to, like I said, 19 years. They sent me to one of the worst prisons across the country in Missouri, Missouri State Prison. Missouri State Penitentiary, also known as the Wall. So if you look it up, the nickname was the bloodiest 48 acres. One of them old prisons, tiered up, 4 or 5 tiers, big units, big yard. They had an upper yard, lower yard, a lot of race wars back then. When I first started doing prisons, it was early 2000, late 99. I did 7 years then. Senate bill passed, cut my time in half while I was doing time. So I was up for immediate parole. But I wasn't doing nothing during this time I was doing in prison. Stabbing, I got stabbing, fighting. I've been doing time in a hole under investigation. And I was up for immediate parole. they always say it was the fastest parole hearing in history. I walked in there and the parole board looked me in my face and told me, Mr. Sims, you are part of the problem. That was the whole, you got some more years with us. That was my whole parole hearing, my first parole hearing I've ever been to. So I just went back to the yard. Back then, they give you your answer. In Missouri, I'm from Missouri, so back then, you get about 2 weeks, they slide your answer on a piece of paper under your door. And they said my answer, and I had some more years with them. I got out after doing a few more years, right back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang, got in some gang wars, selling drugs, caught some more cases, to eventually I went to the state 3 more times. And then after I got out of that, the federal government came and picked me and 31 other people up, conspiracy charges, gang activity, and other different charges. That's when I was in the state. When I was in the federal institution, that's when I made the transition to what I do now. Made that transformation. Started bettering myself, reading, sticking to myself, just preparing for my release. Once I got released, that's how I got involved in all the things I do, from authoring to running I actually run programs inside of correctional institutions now, in workshops across the country.
Yeah, kudos to you, man. Turning your life around. That's really impressive. It's harder to do, I think, than, being on the right track your whole life is righting the ship midstream. So kudos to you. And I want to get back on all that, but I do want to focus a little on Charlie Adelson. So Joe Rojas, you're the man on the other side of the bars, the former corrections officer, the CO, from Rosie Woods. So we talked about this on the last show, Joe, and just to get everyone caught up, Charlie Adelson, Dan Markell is really the victim, obviously, in all this. He was murdered back in 2014, and it turned out it was a murder for hire plot. The hitmen and the go-between, a woman, Katie Magbanawa, were convicted. And just this past November, the ex-brother-in-law, Charlie Adelson, he is convicted. And his defense at his trial in Tallahassee, Florida, said the Latin Kings gang extorted him for money, which is insane, because why would they go and kill the one guy that the Adelsons basically all wanted dead? So it didn't really hold water. Fast forward to Charlie getting sentenced to life in prison, and then we find out, we just had Tommy on the show, that he was green-lighted for a hit. And so they obviously had to move him. Rosie Woods wants to know, Joe, and we'll get into some of the details of how all this happened. Are there Latin Kings in South Dakota? Will they get to him in South Dakota? Joe Rojas. You got to unmute yourself, Joe. I'm sorry. Unmute yourself. Go ahead, Joe. You got to do it again. I'm sorry. I think you double tapped there. There you go.
How about now? Can you hear me?
You're good. And I'll take care of it for you from now on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So there's Latin Kings everywhere. Doesn't matter where you go, what you do. There's going to be Latin Kings in every state, in every jail, every prison, whether federal, state, a county. So, and they have a vast network. So the question was, what was the question?
If they're Latin Kings there, that's number one. But here's another question. Go ahead, Joe.
There will be, because they're all over the place. That's one of the major gangs. Like for the feds, that's one of the major STGs. Gangs that disrupt within the prison system. And actually, I also work for the state, and we had Latin Kings in the state. Have friends all over the country, and there's Latin Kings everywhere.
And then another question, Joe, that people are interested in here. Lindsay Shea, friend of the show, is on here all the time. How did Charlie get to South Dakota? They want to know if he was taken by
bus.
Bus? Yeah, bus. So, Joe, what do you think?
Well, it could be a bus, or like with the feds, we have the Airbus by plane. So it could be one or the other. I would think since he's going from Florida to South Dakota, it might be an Airbus. That's my opinion. I would think that's such a long drive, and when you have a high profile inmate like that, you don't want to be on the road that long driving, with all the dangers. So my opinion and my experience, it would be an Airbus where he would be flown from A to B, and that's not unusual. I think they said before of transferring. Because such a high profile inmate going from state to state, that's not that uncommon. And like the guest said before as well, usually they do from state to feds and from feds to state. That happens a lot. You know, I've seen that. I know we've had a lot of state inmates at my institution, and vice versa. We've sent federal inmates to state institutions because that's the way. Because you know, it's almost like a witness protection plan for inmates to protect them, and they deserve the protection. To be honest with you, because you don't want nothing to happen.
I'm sorry, STS. Just keep jumping in with the questions. Joe, I'll mute and unmute you because I know you're on your cell phone, so you don't have to do it. I'll do it. Tommy Scoville, you were moved around a lot. Walk us through the process. I think people, you know, on the other side who've not been in prison don't understand. They're intrigued by that. As a matter of fact, at the book signing last night, I had a lot of people come up and say that their absolute favorite shows are when we have the former inmates on, because you know they're so intrigued by it. But when you would be moved, how does that work? How much time are you given? And you're shackled into the bus? Were you ever flown anywhere?
Oh yeah. Because I was a federal inmate, almost every time I got moved in Con Air, but they're not going to give them any warning at all. They don't want the inmate being able to reach out to anybody on the street and say, hey, they're porting me on Sunday or on Monday or whatever. They don't want the Vin Diesel escape plan from Fast and Furious getting put in there, right? So they tend to wake you up in the middle of the night, 1 or 2 o'clock, and say, roll your stuff up. You know, you're out of here. And, you know, the phone will be turned off. Your ability to communicate will be, cut, and they'll give you a really early breakfast. And by 5 a.m., you're usually getting loaded onto a vehicle shackled up, black box shackled, which is where they put a chain around your waist and you're handcuffed through the chain. And then that little gap section between the handcuffs is locked with a black box and the chain goes through that. So you can't move at all. Really very, very restricting. And that is how they transport inmates. They also I got to agree with what Joe was saying. They're not going to give anybody that much time with a high profile inmate on the road. Chances are they put them on an airplane.
Tommy, what's the longest that they would take someone on a road trip? I know they took Lori Vallow, I think across state lines from Idaho to Arizona, and they were keeping a real close eye on her. But to take Charlie by bus from Florida to South Dakota, I mean, that's like a 2-day, 3-day trip.
I was on a bus for 17 hours one time, but that was from the very bottom of Michigan to the very top. And it was a 17-hour nightmare. Yeah.
And are you shackled the whole time?
Totally. Belly shackled, ankle shackled, cuffed, the whole. Plus, you're shackled to 2 other dudes. So if you got to pee, the 3 of you are going to pee together. And there was a time where I had to take a dump. They put us in the what they call the dog kennels, and it's like a meeting where all the transport, they all go to this one central operating place where all the buses. So I'm there, and my stomach is going bad, and there's these like 20 these cages, and everybody's screaming and yo, what's up, yelling at each other, guys they ain't seen in years because that guy over there or whatever. And I gotta take a dump so bad, and the cop comes walking by. I said, man, I gotta take a dump, and he points to one of those pee jars. That's what they were giving you, the little like the hospital pee things. I said, no, bro, I gotta go number 2, man. He goes, nothing I can do. He starts walking away. I grab him through the bars. I said, no, bro, you don't get it, bro. I gotta go right now. I said, please. And he opens the thing and he says, I'm going to let you use the officer bathroom. So he walks me around and lets me take a quick dump. And
is that on the bus, Gunner?
No, this is while we're waiting to get on the bus because so he drove like 5 hours to this central place in St. Louis, Michigan, where they change on. You get on different buses that are taking you all over the place. There's like 25 buses there and all going over. But you had to go. I can't imagine. If it got that bad while I'm on the bus, there's nothing you can do. You're going to crap your pants. But anyways, this cop was super cool, and he let me freaking take a dump. And I thanked him. I came out of there and said, bro, thank you, bro. I was sick. I was in really bad shape.
Wow. These are real prison stories you are hearing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Joe Rojas, Charlie's been moved. He went from the county prison to the reception center to Wakulla, I think, to then Columbia. And now he's in South Dakota, and he only got convicted in November. How many times is this guy going to be moved during a life sentence?
Joe,
hold on. That was my fault. Let me get you. Here we go. There we go. You're free.
Okay, it depends on him. Depends on his safety. The utmost thing is about the safety. If his life keeps getting threatened, and depending on the type of institution, the layout, they might have to move him again. It just depends on the situation. Depends on the facility as well. What kind of institution? If it's a high, is it a low, is it a medium? Because depends on the facility you're at. It's the type of security you're gonna have. So it varies, and it depends on the situation. I mean, that's as simple as I can put it.
Cardell, back to you. And right now we're good. I'm not going to mute anyone. If it gets funky, I'll switch it up. Annie K always has great questions. She wants to know, did an incident precipitate this move, and who initiated Charlie Adelson's relocation, and is he safer now? So there's a bunch of questions in here. What we know to be true is that he was green lighted by the Latin King gangs. Cardell, so that's really what precipitated it, I think. Obviously, they moved him to South Dakota, but the last question is the most interesting, I think. Is he safer now, Cardell?
I mean, as right now, he might be safe, but word spreads through prisons across the country quicker than a phone call sometimes. And they probably know who he is right now. They'll be moving him here pretty soon. The way the communication goes through prisons, throughout institutions, it goes quicker than most people think. They most likely, if to be honest with you, they might have knew he was already coming. If they was really tired right there, they knew somebody knew he was coming in. They know who's coming in. They got somebody who can tell when somebody's coming in. When I was in federal prison in Leavenworth, we see it all the time. Who's coming in? I got somebody's coming in who might be questionably hot. Get ready, go to the store, get ready for everything. We might be going on a lockdown because somebody coming in who did this at that institution. So word spreads fast inside of prisons, no matter what state you in or whatever. When I was in Leavenworth, we was getting word from Virginia, from Mississippi, from California. So if somebody knew he was coming in right at this moment, they know he's there. So overall, it's a security thing. If that institution that he's at right now feel like there's a institutional risk for them and a security risk for them, they'll be moving him out as quick as they put him in.
That's wild. Here's a question that we'd love to discuss, Tommy. Apparently, this is almost like the equivalent of witness protection, but for inmates. We're getting sources telling us that he's going by a different name, that you're not going to be able to look him up. And there was confusion when they moved him because they said they did move him out of Columbia Correctional, but then no one can find him. Is it because they have given him a new identity? And how do they do that?
Sometimes they do. When they brought Drew Peterson to the feds, they didn't bring him in under the name Drew Peterson, but it took about 35 minutes. Most of the guys in there's so many. It's like, honestly, it's like Cardell was saying. I promise they knew he was coming before he got there. There are guys on the inside that have leaked that. And
Tommy, how do inmates get this information out? And before it's like Twitter, it's as fast as Twitter. How?
No, so when he was talking about when he was at Lompoc, so when I was in the feds, I had a job in my unit, and my job was when people came in, I got them situated. I would say, all right, here's how you get set up on the computer so you can send emails home, all the different things, sort of welcome to the unit. And I would get a list of the people that were coming in 4 days before they showed up. Now, he's probably down there under a different name, but there are relationships that get pretty solid between inmates and guards. And I know it's not supposed to go down like that, but it sure as hell does. Yeah. And if there's a guard that knows, then chances are there's an inmate somewhere that knows too. It really does travel quick.
Wow. Crazy. I mean, it's crazy. But Nina Stanek here for Gunner. Last time it was discussed, Charlie had been greenlit. That's what we're talking about. Why kill him, Gunner, if you can extort him forever? The irony is that he said the Latin Kings extorted him, and now I'm sure he's being extorted. But what's the advantage to killing him versus extorting him, Gunner?
Well, here's the thing. The only reason they would kill him is if he really, there's two ways, right? If he really pissed somebody off, or somebody paid the gang or killers to kill him. That's it. You know what I'm saying? That's it. So just killing him. But the other thing is the threat of killing him, the lording in it, maybe getting it out there that he's green lit, that they're going to kill him, is a surefire way to get put the press on him. So now he can extort, the gang can extort him. They're like, listen, bro, you got to put $500 a month in my account or whatever it is, or it's it. We won't call out the hit. It's it. You're going to die in this yard. But and the other thing is if somebody really wants them dead and they got a price, the gang is like, give us 10 grand, we're going to kill him. Well, they're going to send somebody who's willing to go. And then the guy's probably got a life sentence already. And he's going to say, we're going to give you, $5,000 to kill him. If you get caught, don't worry. We'll keep you in, so that guy might kill him and go through trial and lose. He's already doing life, but he's going to have $5 grand in his bank account for, or be taken care of if it's done right. So he doesn't care. He's got nothing to lose. And that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. Joe Rojas from Carroll C. Security did not help Whitey Bulger, or Bulger, or however people pronounce it. I'm from Boston, which we were there last night. He was going down no matter what. Is that the case, you think, with Charlie, who's super high profile, multiple Dateline episodes about him, 2020 episodes? By the way, well, I'll ask Cardell that, if that gives you any street cred if you're on Dateline or 2020. But before we get there, Joe Rojas, is it a matter of time before they get this guy? Is this guy living on borrowed time? And I'll get you. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry.
They can hide him for a long time. They can hide him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, go ahead.
It's funny that you mentioned Whitey Bulger because he actually came from my institution to the institution. He left from Coleman, where I was at, to Hazleton, and they already knew he was going to be there days before. Days before he got there. So there's a good possibility he is on borrowed time because shuffling. And part of the thing is inmates talk, COs talk. Sometimes you'll be talking to another CO, we're getting Whitey Bulger, and an inmate's right behind you. You have no idea. That's another reason. Could be something innocent. As we call it, it's called inmate.com. They know more than others. Yeah. So I think, I personally opinion, seen it all, done it all, been doing corrections for 30 years. High profile inmate. Yeah, he's gonna be on roller skates.
Yeah.
From place to place.
And Joe, just back to this identity switch here with Charlie. Roxanne wants to know, how does a male inmate change their name? Just adding to what Tommy says. I mean, are they given like fake papers to show other inmates? How does that technically work?
They just changed the name because it's still gotta have, because we still, like, as a staff member, we still got to know what these inmates are in for, so that way we know what we're dealing with. It's like what's called like a PSI, like, especially this high profile, like with the feds, they have what's called a poster picture file, and it has a list of all the high profile inmates, dangerous inmates, and stuff like that. That way we can see who's coming into our unit and warn us. So his name might change, but the reason he's incarcerated will not change.
From Kim Vest, Tommy, this one's for you, and then we'll get back to Cardell in a sec. Is Chris Watts, he murdered his little kids. Is he living on borrowed time, do you think?
Right.
Another high profile inmate.
You know what? That's a really difficult thing for me to answer, because state by state, the way that that weirdos like Chris Watts are protected, they differ so much from one state to the next. I've seen some stuff on him that looks like he's really kind of in a fairly restricted unit, and that they've got him fairly well protected. In prisons that I've been to, that guy wouldn't do well. But I can't really speak to where he's at, because everything I've seen, it really looks like the guy's not too concerned about anything. He looks like he's living a pretty soft life.
Cardell,
Sammy the Bull. Just to say, Sammy the Bull, for 19 years they kept him in PC, and he was completely protected. That he never interacted with more than a couple guys. He had his own phone time, his own yard time, and they kept him because he was going to get extorted, and they knew it. So they sometimes, and they can do that, where if it's a high enough profile guy and his life's on the line, he won't interact with anybody. He may have he was in the shoe, I think, in the feds, and they just. He said, I went everywhere with 2 cops, and even the chow hall, I was on like 5 of us at a time or whatever. So, I mean, you never know.
Was that
he-
partly because of his mob connection that he got that treatment?
It was because that people were going to extort him, trying to extort him. Because and he had ticked off some people, like he said something to some black dude about the phone, and the guy's like, "All right, man, I got you. You know, you're not in the mob in here no more, old man." And he's let him have it. Even John Gotti got punched in the face, by some black dude in jail. I'm just saying, when you don't have your gang or your a mob associates in there, you're just some little old man, creepy old man, and he's this huge rat cooperator. Like, nobody had any respect for him. He ratted on the whole mob, so everybody who sees him as the lowest vermin scumbag ever. The only thing that could be worse is a predator, like a child molester or something. But anyway, so they kept him protected for 19 years.
Hey, Gunnar, if I walked into that state prison that you said is the worst one of the worst ones, would my 170-pound frame become friends with you? You think you and I'd be buddies?
Listen, I wasn't in there to make friends, so I wasn't real friendly. I didn't care. Most people in there were scumbags. I wrote 9 novels when I was in there. I was into my fitness, and I was into reading. I was into changing my mindset to be a better person and my faith. And so I didn't make a lot of friends, but I'd make friends with anybody. I don't care who you were. If you were cool, I was cool with you. And if you actually were real cool, we could become like Titan boys. But I mean, your size don't have nothing to do with it. Any of these guys who've been in there will tell you the size is nothing. I've seen, there was this little white kid. He comes up to me and he says, "Hey, man, this homosexual predator is pressing me. Every time I get out of the shower, he's like gunning me down and he's trying to get me in the cell with him and blah, blah, blah. What should I do?" And I felt bad because the kid was like a 140-pound little white kid, right? Like 21-year-old kid. Yeah. I said, "Here's what you do, bro. You don't use a knife. You don't use the lock in the sock, nothing. As soon as that dude calls you over like that, walk over there like we're good and you're going to go in the cell and get busy, and you beat his brains in. And you don't stop until somebody pulls you off. Just beat that guy half to death. And after that, no one will bother you, bro. I promise you." So I'm up in my cell an hour or two later, and I hear all the keys jingling. When the cops come in, their cuffs are you hear lockdown, and hear something's happening, right? I wait till we get out of lockdown, and I see the porters out there cleaning up blood. I said, "What happened?" And that little kid, they called him Doc. That little kid, Doc, beat the hell out of some old freaking predator. Beat the hell. But Doc now, after this, he's walking around. Nobody bothering him. Nobody bothering him no more. You see how that works? So it don't matter how big you are. Just man up, stand your ground. I mean, somebody can always stab you. They can always jump you and they get you down with numbers. But 90% of the time, 99% of the time, if you stand your ground, you ain't no punk. You ain't on some punk. Nobody's going to bother you. You'd be fine.
Cardell, if I ever get incarcerated, I'm going to be the craziest white guy you've ever seen. I'm going to be swatting imaginary flies, talking to myself.
Crazy. Trust me,
I'm going to make people think I'm the craziest person in that prison. They're going to be talking about me. That guy's the craziest guy that's ever come in here. Yeah. Phantom 6000. Hey, Joel, quite a crew today. I love it. Seems like by the way, Phantom 6000 is an attorney, for full disclosure, and very well connected in the world of mixed martial arts and a good guy. Seems like assuming his appeal fails, Charlie will be more incentivized to fold. Whitey Bulger was a rat. Do you agree with that? That he might be able to, because Cardell, there's still people in the family, and we're going to get to that in a moment, who are there are people in the family who still could be tried for this case. Is this true that that he would be more incentivized to maybe flip on a family member?
Yeah, that could draw him to do it. All that moving around and stuff, that's exhausting. I'm gonna tell you that. Having to move 3 o'clock in the morning, they come to get you. Middle of the night, they come to get you. Doing that over and over becomes exhausting and tired. So yeah, that's a strong possibility. Especially if you feel like they have a part of the green light as well. So it's a lot of factors that play into that. But just on the fact of him doing all that moving, he'd get tired of that if he's not already tired of that, and he's going to do anything he can to probably stop that process.
Wow. To Joe Rojas from Just Ellie, does Charlie have great questions, by the way, please keep them coming. Does Charlie have to restart his new prison in isolation? If so, what does this look like? Walk us through the steps here He lands in South Dakota and he's brought to this state pen. What does it look like for him now? This is, by the way, hang on one sec, Joe. I'm going to unmute you. This is, by the way, what it actually looks like. This is Charlie's new home. COE, let's try to fix that. It looks like
It's
a
just a day
commissary.
room.
Yeah, what is that, Gunnar?
That's just a day room or the chow hall. That's
Yeah,
not a
here.
prison.
Yeah, there's some of the units, I guess.
That's a low level one. He's not in that. He's in
not,
he's in the one where you see the blue, the bunk thing you're looking at is not where he is.
Not where he is, yeah. And I've learned from Tommy that these are called cars. So, but Joe Rojas, to you, what about this? What's his new? What are his first couple of days like in this new place?
Well, he'll go into what's called R&D, receiving and discharge. That's from the state, or TNA, transfer and association. And he'll go there. They'll medically assess them. Psychology, and they'll probably put him in AC confinement or protective custody for his safety, and he'll be isolated until further notice. I mean, seriously, with limited access to what other inmates have because of what's been going on with him being transferred place to place. Because the ultimate goal is to protect him, and so he's probably going to be in segregation or PC and stay there until they feel that if he can assimilate back to the compound, they will do that. But he's going to have limited access. He won't be like with the other inmates watching TV and stuff like that. He'll have maybe 1 hour rec like everybody, like your viewers in SHU, and it'll be limited. It won't be fun for him.
Hey,
you get
Gunnar,
used to it. It's not that bad. Just when I tell you, I spent 19 months in the hole. You get used to it. Be perfectly honest. I would have been perfectly fine doing my entire bit in PC or in a hole or whatever. I don't like people. I don't want to be around them. It's just one more opportunity for me to like end up smashing someone and getting more time. You get a routine. You got your TV, you got your commissary, you got your food, you got your workout, you got a book to read, you got your writing time, and you can just boom, days turn into months, months into years. Maybe that's where he'll end up in that position. I don't know.
But on the flip side, Gunnar, like especially the ADX, the Supermaxes, how do those guys not lose their minds when they're just in a room? I mean,
you got to be strong. You got to be strong. You got to be strong. Like that's what it's designed to do. Is to break your mind. I did 19 months in solitary confinement like that, and it only made me stronger. I came out the other side a better man for it. Not everybody will. Most people will break. What I mean by that is there's Cordell. I don't know how much time you've done on the whole, but I'm sure it was some. But there's a breaking point. If somebody spends enough time in solitary confinement, they won't come out normal. They will break. They will never be normal again. And so that is what it is. But some guys are perfectly fine with it. I was one of them. I was perfectly fine. I like to play softball a little bit. I like to play tennis or basketball and sports. I don't mind walk the yard a little bit, walk the track. I enjoyed that. But if given a choice, like, listen, you can have a single man cell and just do your time in solitary, or you can hit the yard 2-3 hours a day and hang out. Just give me my own cell. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I just rock it out all by myself because that's the type of guy I was. Not everybody's like that,
Hey, Cardell, Katie Cool Lady is a cool lady. She's got a comment. She's a friend of the show, friend of mine, actually. Is Charlie is there any possibility that he has a roommate at this point or in the future?
Nah, he's gonna have a roommate at this point. He won't have a roommate. Too much going on surrounding him in the case and all the movement and stuff like that. They security reasons they want to give him no roommate. He'll probably do probably the next 10, maybe at least 10 years by himself. If he makes it 10 years. Roommate, I don't see that happening no time soon. And most likely he probably wouldn't want a roommate anyway, himself.
Yeah.
But with him going do what he's going through and all that traveling and they moving him here and moving him there, his stay is going to be in solitary. He's going to be in SEG by himself.
Listen,
Cardell,
I
I'll-
got you
Cardell,
guys. I just realized my computer is going to die of 3%.
All
So
right.
if there's anything else that you wanted to ask me, thank you. Ask me now. I apologize.
No, Gunnar, tell us the name of the book again and your YouTube channel.
My book is To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2. My YouTube channel is Gunner Detroit, just Gunner Detroit. I also started a radio station called Conviction Radio. So go to convictionradio.com, check out what we got. We have 24 shows running 24 hours a day that are news at the top of the hour. Just check it out. It's all inspirational, positive, motivational stuff. It's Christian based. But yeah, just in my YouTube channel, Gunner Detroit, and my books. I have 2 new books coming out this year. I got a lot going on, a documentary, just a lot of cool stuff. So if you just kind of follow me at Gunner Detroit is my website, by the way. But
Gunnar, we love having you on. Let me ask you this: you're getting up there in years. You think you could still take me in a fight, Gunnar?
yes, that's a firm yes.
Okay, it's a firm yes. Okay,
Yes,
just wanted
I'm not that far gone, man.
I would try to kick you in the knees. That's what I would do. I would try to kick you in the knees, I think. But
yeah, that'd just make me mad. That would just make me mad. I just
Gunnar, I love you, man. We're gonna get people to buy your book. Love having you on, and we'll call on you soon.
Thank you for having me. And guys, it was nice meeting you all. God bless you. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you next time.
Glad you turned your life around, man. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother. God bless you guys. Enjoy.
Out of the wife. All right, man. Take care. That was Gunnar Lindblom, Detroit Mafia. It doesn't get scarier than that. I bet. You know what? Tommy Scoville, I bet you he's right. I bet you he could probably take me in a fight. I don't know. Maybe I get lucky. You know, it only takes one punch, Tommy. That's what they say. It only takes one good punch.
Yeah, one good.
And I do watch a lot of mixed martial arts. I don't practice, but I do watch. So I would pretend.
Well, that's half the battle, Joe. I think you're probably good.
Here we go. Did Charlie have to pull strings? The COE took down a comment I purposely put up there. I'm going to put it back up in a second. But did Charlie have to pull strings to be moved to South Dakota, or does the prison just want to keep him alive? Tommy, not Charlie, is waving his head. No strings.
No, he has absolutely no control over that. That had nothing to do with him. He didn't put in a request, hey, get me out of here. Those decisions are not made by inmates at any level. That was a decision that was made by the prison.
And Tommy, this is the comment I wanted to get to from Lady B. I cannot believe Wendy's still living her best life when her husband is gone. So we do have some breaking news on this front. I have multiple sources that get information about Wendy Adelson, and it has been reported to me from multiple sources that she is now moving to Austin, Texas from South Florida. Now, her mother is behind bars awaiting trial. Her brother is in state prison for the rest of his life. Her father is elderly. Tommy, your reaction to hearing this?
Well, I think that it's pretty obvious that she doesn't have much of a soul, right? So her running away and leaving her aged father and sort of forgetting the family. If anybody's shocked by that, I'd be surprised. She's a really, really odd duck. But yeah, and a lot of times, that feeling of I'm getting away from this, I think that's probably pretty desirable, although I don't think she can run from this, but I could see why she would want to.
Well put. Does not have much on a soul, that is for sure. Joe, back to you on this, and a little easier to manage with 3 best guests, which is usually how we have it, but who would want to tell Gunnar to get lost, but his computer died. From Neely, do you think that Luis Rivera is behind it, Joe? He's the actual only Latin King gang member. Some people were saying it's Sigfredo Garcia, but Sigfredo was never an actual Latin King member. So would it have to come, in your opinion, Joe, from an actual Latin King member in order to be green lighted?
I would think so. I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely got to be from one of those Latin Kings, especially on the hierarchy of the Latin Kings, to be green lighted, because you're just not going to just do that without the heads doing something like that. My opinion would be a yes. That could be.
Cardell, let me ask you this. Obviously he's facing a life sentence, but it's so much more than that, especially in his position. I think you were a different sort of inmate. But this is an inmate who, like I said, has been on Dateline multiple times, on 2020 multiple times. There was a podcast that got 30 million downloads. is he just in a living hell right now where every second he's got to be looking through the eyes in the back of his head, like where he just never has a moment of peace because he doesn't know if he's going to get shanked. He doesn't know if he's going to be moved. He doesn't know, something's coming his way.
Oh yeah, he most definitely is in a living hell. Don't know when you're gonna get moved. You don't know if or when you're gonna be attacked or what's going on. There's just a lot going on. That's the thing about having a high profile case. Everybody knows what you're done. It can be good for you or it can be bad for you. In this case, it's terrible for him. So I can guarantee you right now, he's not getting no sleep. We might not have seen no pictures or nothing surface, but we see any recent pictures or anything surface here within the next few months. You'll see you'll probably see the big difference in the toll that it's taking on him physically, to have to go through day by day. Because like we said earlier, even with him being in either PC or in the hole or in segregation, that doesn't mean that he's safe. That doesn't mean that he's out of the clear, because if you really got a green light on you and they want you, they're going to maneuver and make their ways into into PC. They in Missouri we call I used to see people when I first started doing prison time. What we used to do, like, you owe a big debt and you try to PC and go to the hole and PC, somebody to follow you right in there. They PC right in there. You try to get transferred to another institution, they transfer to another institution on you. So yeah, if they really want you, they gonna get you. So of course he's really going through it right now. And I would definitely not have to want to do my time the way he's doing his time.
Wow. Tommy, back to you on Wendy for a minute. She's a target of potentially the state of Florida. They might want, we don't know. We have no idea actually, but they might want to try to indict her at some point. I think they're going family member by family member. Now she appears to be moving out of state. Seems pretty obvious she's not going to be Katie Kool-Lady with a comment here. I think it has to do with this. Wendy could be setting up a springboard for herself to leave the country out of fear of an arrest right after Donna's conviction. And look, she's moving to a border state with Mexico. That's basically what I was going to ask in so many words, Tommy. Is the state or the feds, do they have to keep an eye on her? And in your own opinion, do you think she's creating some sort of exit plan because she saw what happened to her mother? And she's not an idiot. That's one she's sold.
I've never seen it work. I've never seen it work. I've never seen anybody go into Mexico and actually get away. It's not a great place to run. They got a really great extradition deal with the U.S. and nobody that goes to Mexico gets away. She may be thinking that. It would certainly point to guilt, right? But she's, regardless of what she does, she won't get across that border. I promise you. They're not going to let her get away.
Tommy, I have said it before. I say it again. I'd be swimming to Cuba. That's what I would be doing with a snorkel and my 2 kids on floaties, and I'd be paddling with flippers on to Cuba as fast as I could, hanging on to the fin of a shark to pick up a little speed, because that's the only place I think you could go to Cuba and maybe make a run from it from there somewhere. But yeah, I agree with you. Mexico, it ain't happening. Wildfire is after my heart. I could talk to these guys. I say it every time. I could have an 11-hour. One day I'm going to do like a marathon prison podcast. I think it's because I'm so scared of prison that I could talk about it forever. But Cardell, since you were on the other side of the bars, does the food change from prison to prison? Is Charlie experiencing different meals now that he's in South Dakota?
Nah, I ain't never noticed a food change. And all the institutions I've been in, it's been the same. It's been the same type of trays and the same type of food that's been going on in trays ever since I started going inside the institution. Even as a juvenile, I was what they call a state baby. So I was state raised in institutions, from juvenile detention centers to foster homes, to county jails, to state prison. I kind of went all the way up the ladder. So all the trades look the same to me on all the levels.
And shout out to Best Widor, who used to be Black Widor, and she says, Widor, Cardell, she comes to us from the Republic of Ireland, man, from all the way from
wow.
Ireland. She watches us. We are a global show. This is a great question. I'm glad Olive Green looks like she has very bright, pretty green eyes. But what you can't, it's hard to tell on an avatar here. Are people, Cardell, with life sentences allowed visitors? So I did read that Charlie he wasn't allowed visitation in Florida, but apparently is allowed visitation now. Why would that be?
That's because he's all the way up in South Dakota. They know ain't nobody really gonna travel too much to South Dakota to visit. You can get all the visits you want if they're gonna come up there.
Cardell, you don't have to answer. I'm just curious. I mean, you said, how old were you when you first started getting in trouble?
I caught my first case when I was 15 years old. First degree assault, attempted murder.
And I mean, I assume you grew up in a bad neighborhood under bad conditions. Is that right?
Yeah. I grew up in the projects. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. I had an older sister that she had 2 weeks prior to her 14th birthday. So you had a kid trying to raise 2 children. She wasn't. By the time I was a teenager, I was already involved in gangs and everything like that. So she was going through her drug addiction at the time. She was addicted to crack. So when she was addicted to crack, I was in the streets, gang banging and things like that. Caught my first case when I was 15. Like I said, first degree assault, attempted murder. Got into a huge fight. Where I stay in Missouri, we host the Missouri State Fair, which turns into like a racial event because back then the town and the city was so segregated. So when we went to the state fair, we got in a huge fight. Me and a friend of mine, we both the same age. We almost killed this guy with a 2x4 and a tire iron. He was about 4 or 5 years older than us, but we pursued him, chased him down, really tried to kill him.
And let me ask you, I mean, this is so difficult. Look, some people have different starts in life, and you obviously had a much harder start. Is it an excuse to go and do horrible things? No, but you don't have probably the same parental guidance as maybe I did growing up. What's your advice to people who may come from less than easy backgrounds growing up? What's your advice if someone comes to you from the hood and they've their parents aren't watching over them and they're struggling and there's gang violence around? What would you say to them?
I would say 2 things. One is don't let the limitations of your background reduce the height of your potential. 2 is don't believe that you're a product of your environment. You're a product of your choices.
You know what's amazing? My dad was a psychiatrist. He passed away. There's a famous philosopher named John Paul Sartre who said the only choice you do not have is not to make a choice, meaning everything in life is a choice. My dad really believed that. And that's good advice. So I'm always screw Jeff Bezos and these guys. It's guys like Cardell that I'm impressed by. Screw Elon Musk. It's guys that had all the odds stacked against them who turned their lives around. Joe, do you agree with that? I mean, for a guy like Cardell coming from where he came from and now he's doing real good, trying to change other people's lives. What do you think of that?
I think 100% agree. It's about choice. Look, I grew up in the South Bronx. Okay, so I think I turned out pretty good. Okay, and I've been around gangs, and I could have went one way or the other way. I knew if I was going to go one way, I knew it was wrong. I knew the choices, so I decided not to, because I was being pulled to go one way, and I said I don't want to go that way, so I went the other way. So, like I said, I grew up in the South Bronx. Parents worked, and I was left alone a lot of times, and did hang around with some undesirables, but never went that way. So I agree 100%. Great
By the way,
advice.
my dad is from the boogie down Bronx, and he never went that way either. So good for him. But it was also 1940. It was a little different in the 40s back then. I don't know what this is. This just came up here. Katie Kool-Lady, Tommy. His listing still says closed custody. So does that mean he's still in the hole? I take it, Tommy.
Yeah, it usually means that he's not on the yard. And you know that when you were asking earlier how far they can take somebody, when they transport somebody in a bus over long distances, what they do is they hit a county jail every night. So after they've transported you for 8 to 10 hours, they're going to pull into whatever the closest county jail is. Everybody gets off. They go in, they grab a cell. They get up in the morning, eat off those crappy trays, and no different from one to the next. And then they get back on that bus, and they can do that to you for months. Call it diesel therapy. And they will, if they're unhappy with you, they can drive you all over the country. It's fairly awful.
And Tommy Scoville, do me a favor, give us a detailed day, a day in the life of Charlie Adelson. What time is he awakened, and what happens, and what time does he go to bed?
They're going to start feeding him breakfast at probably 5 a.m. or pretty close to it, because when you're in the shoe, everything is designed to put you to sleep. Honestly, like they start feeding you at 5 a.m. for breakfast. You have lunch at about 10, and you have dinner at about 3:30. And it's just designed to get everybody to go to sleep. But what he's probably doing is 1 hour outside a day, and then he waits for the food. Chances are,
is a 1 hour outside? Is he alone in that 1 hour, or are there other
he'll
people?
be in a cage. So there are guys next to him in a cage. There'll be a cage between them. So sort of he's alone, but it'll be the only chance he gets to talk to people. But my gut says he's not going out there. If he just got sent to another prison, he's hoping no one's going to find out who he is. But you can have a newspaper, subscription sent to you in prison. I did the whole time I was down. So his picture, his story, it's been all over the place. I mean, there are people in there talking about him, right? That this is a story that's been a very big deal. And I promise you, everybody knows who Charlie is. This is not going to be a who? Oh, he's from Florida? No.
So
Nope,
let me ask you,
this was all over.
If the guy next to him, if Big Dave next to him says, hey, what's your name? What does Charlie say? What do you do if you're him?
Well, that it's funny because when they brought Drew in, he had this whole line of crap story. And first time he walked in, he was like, hey, started introducing himself. I was like, you're Drew Peterson. Like everybody knew, it wasn't, and it's the same kind of thing. That dude spent a lot of time in newspapers, right? Inmates may not be the sharpest, but they read newspapers, they watch television, and they talk about people who get in trouble. Like this is a subject matter that comes up a lot, right? So I promise you, what they did with Peterson was they had this whole line of crap. The problem is this: when you send someone in like that and you give them a backstory, the backstory is always you're a criminal, because you're not going to be at a high custody level being I got in trouble once kind of a thing. So they build up these stories, and then the guy's got to back up that. And people are like, where were you the first time you got arrested? And the stories, I promise you, they don't add up. And guys really quickly go, wait a sec, what the hell did you just say?
Don't let him
ask Cardell, this is a picture of Charlie. We have a bigger mug shot, and it says here, current facility, South Dakota. But a lot of people have commented, I think he looks all right, but a lot of people have commented that he aged a lot. I mean, he was a pretty good. By the way, Cardell, this guy used to drive in Miami, in South Florida. He drove around a Ferrari. He was a very high-paid dentist, a periodontist, well-educated. That alone, forget the high-profile nature, but if somebody was driving a Ferrari on the outside and comes from privilege, is that a problem in prison? Forget being famous.
Yeah. That's a big target. That's a target in itself. You driving Ferraris, that means you subject. If he was in general population, most definitely you subject to it's like the two sides of the coin. You're gonna have friends for it with you because you got the Ferrari and you had the money, you got the money. Then you're gonna have those that want some of that money one way or the other. Distortion will come into play somehow, some way. Many different things happen. So yeah, it's a twofold thing. It's a two sides of the coin. In his case, it's one side of the coin because he's not gonna get too many friends because of his status.
In other words, people want to avoid him because they don't want to be known as associating with him because there's a target on his back, right?
Oh yeah, you do green light. I mean, it's no different than the street. You don't want to be around nobody's green light, and you subject to be, you get hit, you get got. And that's what happens in the prison. Are you with them and they come around that corner, or if you walking around that blind spot and they waiting on them and you with them, you're gonna get them knives, you're gonna get them knife wounds as well. And so bad it is, that's just how it goes. He's not gonna have no friends, and he's not gonna be able to hide who he is. They know who he is. Before he got there, care what name goes, what name you give him, because you have to have a story to match what the name you give him. Especially in federal prison. If they transfer to a federal prison, he gets in there. Let's say for a sake he goes to a federal prison and he gets on the yard. Let's just say that happens. He's going to have to show his paperwork. Once the paperwork comes into play, the paperwork ain't going to match the name. It's going to be a whole nother different thing. That alone is going to get him.
Who does he have to show that to? Who does he have to the shot call? I learned this from Tommy last time. You have to show it to the shot caller. You
got to show it to the representative who comes, who you walk through that door and see. In Leavenworth, when we went through B, I was in B upper, one of the older units, because they had started building the newer units, but I was in the older unit, so I was on the third tier. So when we came through the upstairs, so you walk through the door as orientation, or as the first person come through, you had people standing there looking at your shirt. I was 045, so you 045, you 045, and then you be like, yeah, I'm 045, so they know I was from the Western District of Missouri. I belong in their car. And so they're going to take me around, and during this time, they're going to explain to me all the rules, where you're supposed to walk at, where you ain't walk at, who runs what area, this area. We're going to need that paperwork in 30 days. You got 30 days to get your paperwork. We want your PSI. We want your court transcripts and everything like that. So once you, and they got people counting it down, waiting on you. They monitoring your paperwork. They watching the mail call every day. See if you got your mail coming in, do that paperwork coming in. So you get your paperwork come in, you give it to the person who they is designated to. It's somebody designated to look over the paperwork. They're gonna say, "Oh, go take around this cell." They're the designated person that's gonna look over the paperwork. The shot caller, he might have a spokesman or someone in their unit, and they have a designated person that's their thing. When somebody comes in, the paperwork come in, you look at the paperwork. It might be 1 to 2 guys.
From Best Ida Shaw. I let everyone switch her name to Best today. She's an attorney. Tommy, we talked about some of this, but I'll get Tommy and then go back to Cardell on this one. What is a myth or belief that people have about prison that is completely false? Most importantly, thank you for sharing your stories. I find you all brave and appreciate you all. But what's the biggest myth, Tommy? I know we've talked about the whole word that rhymes with vape in prison.
That's right. That's right. I think that's the biggest misconception, is that there's a lot more of that, people being essayed, people being assaulted that way in prison. It's not as rampant as people would imagine. And they also assume that 24 hours a day, people are stabbing each other. And that's not the case either. It's a very boring life, that's just monotony over and over again, doing absolutely nothing until all of a sudden it's terrifying. And then once it's terrifying, it's friggin' terrifying, and there's blood everywhere. And it's just, one of those things that you go crazy waiting for the shoe to drop, because it's, when it's boring, it's just, it's monotony. And then when it's not, it's, oh crap. And everybody's running for weapons, and it's a terrible world. It really is. It's a terrible world.
Cardell, what about the fact people were kind of joking, but there's some truth to it. Charlie's from Florida, where it's obviously warm. The problem in Florida is a lot of prisons don't have AC, and those guys suffer in the summertime. It's almost inhumane. But what about the opposite in South Dakota? Is he going to be freezing his cojones off in the dead of winter
there? It depends on what type of institution he's in. You have these new institutions where you don't have that problem. You got central air, you got the heat coming through the vents. That's how the institution. But if he's in one of the older institutions, that can be a problem. I've been in both. When I started my prison sentence, it was an older institution, Missouri State Penitentiary. Even when I was in Leavenworth in 2017, I was in the older side of the building where the heat didn't work when it got cold in the air. So it depends on what type of institution that he is in. From what you all show from the pictures, he ain't gonna have, where he's at now, he's not gonna have that problem. They're like the new institution, more modernized, central air, central heating. So yeah, but I've been in some older institutions where you got to crank start that thing to get some heat.
By the way, look at this from Best Ida Shaw. I'm a little slow, so it's no surprise. But Joel, it is to honor STS Best Guests and Best Trials that we change our names. It's for you. I love it. So you got Best Ned Smith. That's awesome. I love this. Cardell, we've got the best guests in true crime, but a better community. I always say, look at Best Ned. I'm a little slow. In fairness, I haven't stopped. Let me tell you something. I told you at the beginning of the show, Carmen and I, it's a good thing we have a 1-day break right now before we go back on our book tour. And we were, like I said, I tried to get her detained by the transit police. They refused to do it for me. They didn't have, she hadn't broken any actual laws at that point. Gail says, I got my book. A lot of people are getting the book. Let me know what you guys think. If you like it or hate it, please leave an Amazon review. If you hate it, don't really leave an Amazon review. You can let me know why you hate it. Speaking of books, Joel, your book's amazing, top notch, almost finished, makes me love you and Carm even more. Much gratitude. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that and feel the same way about you. Carm teared up last night. She got emotional talking about STS Nation. And again, if you're in the New York City area, please come Sunday, the Museum of Jewish Heritage. And then Tuesday, we're in Toronto at the Holocaust Museum, 11:30 a.m. And then at Queen's Books at 6 p.m. Joe Rojas, the former inmates always they're the stars of this show, but I love having you here. Someone earlier said, keep an eye on Charlie. He's going to get moved back to Florida in September. Donna Adelson, his mother goes, thank you, Best Nancy. My mom voiced the book with me. Thank you very much. Donna goes on trial in September. Are they going to have to move him back either to the county jail or state prison? Because he might have to testify. Oh, hold on, Joe. I gotta crack you free here. Hang on. Go ahead.
Well, if he has to testify, yeah, they'll move him, but they'll move him back to South Dakota. That's without saying. But it's like these guys were saying, he's in a world of hurt. So I mean. I won't be surprised if he winds up in the federal system because him going from state to state to state, there are some places in the feds that he might survive. They have what they call some of these yards, snitch yards. There's one in Terre Haute, Indiana. There's one in Arizona, Tucson, and of course there's one at Coleman. Look, we had Whitey Bulger survive such a long time in our unit. We had Larry Nassar. The king of pedophiles.
How is that guy? How is he still alive? He got stabbed, Joe, but are they going to get him?
He's right now in Lewisburg right now. So I think in Lewisburg they got almost the same type of units where they put them all in the same type of yard with everybody else, and they do survive. They're all like inmates, so they don't put them with general population. So there is a possibility where this Charles can probably go to the feds and they'll try to assimilate him in one of these type of environments.
And we're going to go like another, with your permission, everyone, like another 10 or 15. Tommy, go ahead.
The club fed thing. This is, here you go for the common misconceptions, right? That that federal prisons are cush, right? That they're nicer. You don't get television in your cell. You don't get weights. You're not allowed pictures of, you can't have magazines like Playboy or anything like that. They have a lot of rules in the feds that they don't have in the state. And inmates always hear, oh, it's so cushy in the feds. And then you go there and you go, oh man, right? We got lied to. It really is, there's no club fed. If you happen to have gotten a really, really light sentence, you're going to a federal prison camp, right? Where there are no guard towers and but if you're anything other than that, I promise you, it's just like being in any other prison. In fact, if I had to do it over again, I would much rather do my time in a state prison than a federal prison.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah. I would think exact opposite. But Dee here, what is the difference between the federal and state prison? I can tell you, Tommy just said in state, you can have Playboy. Tommy, what does a Playboy go for in prison? How does that work?
In a federal prison? Oh,
federal,
man.
Yeah, in federal prison. How does that work?
Well, you're grandfathered in. So if you happen to own one that was before what they called the Zimmerman Law, the Zimmerman Law is what got rid of everything, weight piles, They used to have video games. They used to have televisions. They did away with all of it. But if you had one before that, you can keep it in a manila envelope. They don't want to see the cover. If they see the cover of it, it's gone. And they're worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars because guys will take them and photocopy them and then sell off the photocopied pictures. And that's a real hustle inside there. That's a big one. That's a big hustle.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you go. There's the difference. That's why they say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men will fight and kill over a Playboy and literally Xerox photographs of naked women. That is what the world is all about in a nutshell.
Yes,
so Tommy, you've got to have like the Bo Derek issue that I stole from my dad in 1982 in order to. I mean, that's crazy. I don't even know if did they even print Playboys anymore? I don't know.
No, I don't think they do anymore, but the ones that are floating around the feds are all from that time period anyway. Bo Derek is probably, that's about the right time period.
Do you imagine like being a lifer and all of a sudden you get out and find a laptop and see what's on there in the real world? I mean, was that weird for you, Tommy?
Good Lord, yes, absolutely. I cannot begin to tell you what a culture shock it was to walk out and see everything. Yeah, it was absolutely a shock. It really was.
Joe Rojas, I think I'm going to have to put my kids into prison so they don't see these. I'll have a son. He's not quite there yet. Don Giovanni here with a question to Joe here. Would Charlie brag in the big house that he once had it all? That'd be a fatal mistake, wouldn't it, Joe? It'd be the exact opposite. Doesn't he want? But Charlie's a big talker. He can't stop talking and he can't stop bragging.
No, he's going to stay quiet as he can be. He don't want the attention because if he gets that attention, he's going to be gone. He's going to be 6 feet under. So it's like you said, it's going to be the total opposite.
And Cardell, to you, what advice if you happen to be in a cell right next to Charlie right now and you kind of knew his story, what would you say to him?
Man, I wouldn't know what to tell him. Press your bump.
Yeah,
that's about it. Press your bump, or get off the yard. One of the two. I mean, ain't really much you can really say to him. I mean, he understands what everything is going on. He understands that he's in the tough. He's in the tough. You're talking about between a rock and a hard place. He's in a tough spot. And there's really nothing that he can do. That hope that he gets to one of them camps that is friendly towards, his case. That he don't have to worry that he was able to walk a yard. Because like you said, in the feds, they do have these camps that protect. Certain cases and certain whether the warden or they might say, don't put your hand. This is a no rat touch camp. We got a no rat policy or no SA policy to touch. So you can't touch them. They can walk the yard and stuff like that. So that's his best bet is to get into one of them environments. But still, then again, if you got a green light by the Latin Kings, you're not really safe nowhere. I don't care what yard you go to, what prison you go to. When it's time to cash in, if they get the opportunity, they're gonna cash in.
And Cardell, when you were by the way, Leavenworth is very infamous prison, right? I mean, a lot of really hardened criminals, correct?
Oh yeah, Leavenworth, United States, not the camp. I was in USP. Leavenworth,
yeah, USP Leavenworth, totally different than the camp.
Totally different. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the last hardcore. Like they follow the rules of prison in Leavenworth. Paperwork, race, very divided, very segregated.
Yep.
That was the big thing for me from state and federal prison. Going in, being under a car and not being able to move on your own. Like you have to move with how the car moves. So yeah, Leavenworth.
I mean, Cardell, could you and I be friends in prison or no? Because I'm white and you're black.
No, that ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work at all. It's crazy because when I first got to Leavenworth, I'm telling you, this how Leavenworth is ran. When I got to Leavenworth, the spokesman walked me up to the cell. They gave me my cell number. Spokesperson, we walked up to the cell, and it was an Aryan brother cell. It was an Aryan brother in there. So we standing there looking. He looking at me. I'm looking at him, and he's like, "Yeah, you ain't coming up in here." And so you don't really go to the guards about nothing. So it ain't go to the guards to try to find another cell. It's like you got to go talk to your car and see if y'all own some cells. If you don't own no cells, maybe because we ain't had no open cells at the time, so I ended up getting in the cell with one of the Nebraska black guys out the Nebraska car. Them and the Kansas City car was kind of close, being that Kansas City and Omaha wasn't too far. But I had to wait till we bought another cell or somebody was leaving so I can get into a Kansas City cell. But yeah, we're not even going to talk to each other. We're not going to sit near each other. None of that. You're not going to be in no areas that I'm in. I'm not going to be in no areas that you in. Unless we taking a program or a class together, we'll see each other. But even in them, we're not going to be no buddy, friend. No. Not going to work.
I guess I would just, by the way, most useless education I ever got was I was forced to learn the first 18 verses of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales at Brandeis University. I could almost probably recite them. The only thing that would ever come in handy for is if I went to prison, all I would do was scream that out in Old English all day long. The 18, and I just repeat it on a loop my whole life.
That might help.
Yeah.
That might help.
Kind of bums me out that I couldn't be friends with Cardell, but I'd rather be in a black gang than the white Aryan gang. The Nazis killed my grandfather.
You're not going to be able to do that. You won't be able to do that as well. If you say you grew up with black people, yeah. You go to the feds. All you ever known was black people. You grew up black people. When you get to the feds, you got to go to the white car. And it got to be a discussion whether or not with the black car, but with the white car, whoever, whatever, if they're gonna allow you to be in a black car. So yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I had a buddy. I had a buddy that was on my indictment. He was on the lower half of my indictment. He was real close with my cousin, but he was a white guy. But all he ever grew up with was around black guys, and he went to Leavenworth. So before I got there, because I was number one on the indictment, I was one of the last ones to get sentenced. So he pleaded out and did his thing. And when I got to Leavenworth, they was there. And prior to me getting there, it was a big thing because he never been in federal prison, so he didn't know how it was run. So when he came in, he got up under the white car because that's who approached him. And so once he realized, I was supposed to belong in the Kansas City black car. It was a lot. I ain't talking about like a small. It was a lot of politicking that had to go on just to make that happen. A payment had to come with it. Might have to give up a couple sales. Like this is real life transaction that's going on in there. That's how deep it is with the division amongst each other in the races.
Oh, it's crazy. Lisa Borges, by the way, Cardell gave us a super sticker for you. She says, as a retired public high school teacher, I think it's amazing that Cardell is still alive and well. I applaud him for changing his life. So there you go.
Amen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, COE keeps Cardell, did you think I don't know how old you are. They say black don't crack, and you look 25 years old, so you're looking great. But
I wish I was 25.
Did you think you would get to the age that you are at now? Did you think you would make it this far?
No, I didn't think I was gonna make it out my first prison bid. I know we talked like Leavenworth. The first prison and the last prison that I actually been to in my life were ran the same. So Missouri State Penitentiary, the walls are ran just like Leavenworth United States Penitentiary. The violence, the blind spots, the stabbings, the deaths, the racism, the division. When you walk into a prison for the first time and in receiving there's a sign that says leave all your hopes and dreams behind, you don't never think you're going to make it out. That was literally a sign in the first prison that I went to. You walk in right in receiving while you're getting yelled at, you now property of the state of Missouri, custody. There's a sign. Look at the sign. Look at it and read it. And there it is, written in red letters. Leave all your hopes and dreams behind.
What? Why? Who the hell puts that up there? The state? That seems crazy. Who put that up
I've seen some pretty funky ones over the years too. I've seen some pretty funky ones over there.
I mean, that sounds crazy. Joe Rojas. This we know the answer. Is there a Jewish car for Joel? No. It's called a motorcycle. I'm sitting on it alone. Or a unicycle, but someone brought up the question, Joe Rojas. Someone mentioned Jodi Arias, infamous female killer. And Joe, they say she's living a cush life. Wesley John Holmes, my friend from Australia living in Tokyo, says you'd be friendless in jail. But why is there a double standard, Joe? Why is Jodi Arias apparently living sort of a stress-free life? It doesn't seem like she's worried about people coming to kill her. Is there a double standard with men and infamous women, Joe? And let me unmute you. Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think that's a little myth as well, because prison is prison, and this and I've been inside of a female prison, a medium, and it might not be as stressful, but it is stressful. You're gonna have the same type of issues, the extortion, anything what happens in the men's prison, men and women. I wouldn't believe that. I would raise doubt with that, because it is just as stressful. Especially if you ask some of these female prisoners that come out, and they will tell you how stressful it is. So that might be another myth buster. So I will cast highly doubt on that.
Look at this. America's favorite troll, Modine. I don't know any actors. So is that an actor, or is Modine just a handsome, well-adjusted looking man right there? Modine likes to troll everybody. He knows better than to troll former inmates, especially Cardell Sims, who will come after him. How many? Oh, this is a great question, Cardell. I was going to ask you this actually. It seems like all these infamous killers, Scott Peterson, the list goes on, even Chris Watts. But in this case, Charlie Adelson, is he going to he's allowed visitors. Are there women out there right now who are writing to him, who think he's a good looking dude? Are there women who are attracted to him? And what is that all about?
Yeah. There's probably some women out there attracted to him. Believe it or not. I mean, they might just be caught up off the fame, the stardom, him being in all these publications, knowing that he has money. They forget the crime. They're not even focused on the crime, and think they're gonna come to see him. I mean, there's always, for some reason, some why, being incarcerated, women will come and be drawn to you. So he will. I ain't gonna say he don't have no women, but I can almost guarantee you probably have some women writing him stuff right now. Visitation. It probably be some women that come from Florida to South Dakota. It might be some women in South Dakota looking at this case and want to get on this visitor list. You just never know.
Yeah, you never. It's a crazy world, man. There's a lid for every pot.
No question.
This is an interesting question, Cardell. Back to you on this one. What about a mixed race person? What if your mom's black, your dad's white, and you get in prison? What happens?
Usually it depends on who you grew up around. That's what it boils down to. You're not going to be a mixed person in no Aryan nation. Now you might be a mixed person in the white Christian car or something like that. But any other car inside the white race, you're not going to be able to be no mixed person in that car. Your best bet is to find out what area you're from and find the cars in that area. Get on Christian time. But nah, mixed person ain't gonna go in a white car. So I'm gonna say probably about 98% of those that's biracial, mixed. But with black and white, they're gonna be in the black car.
Few more minutes and then we'll wrap it up, even though I don't want to. Having a family dinner tonight back in my sort of old hood in New Jersey. This question is interesting. Tommy Scoville, before we get to the question from Wesley, there's a question from Pickleball Paul. Okay. Do women get grandfathered in with respect to magazines of naked men? Does that even exist? Do you think that even exists?
I don't know how that works in the woman's side. Unfortunately, I spent all my time over with the guys.
Yeah, there you go.
I would have preferred that, but didn't work out.
Good answer. Wesley John Holmes. Tommy, when a new inmate, we always see this in the movies, is checked in, does he do a walk of shame and hurled abuse his way? You're walking in, you're all alone. Does that really happen?
You betcha. Depending on how you go in. I mean, it depends on, like, if you're walking into a day room, that's not going to happen. But like when you get brought into, if you get brought into a lockdown unit, like I remember I went to the special management unit and every single cell I walked by, somebody had something they wanted to yell. And that's just, it's pretty standard operating because you're locked down all day long. There's nothing else to do, right? So all of a sudden there's something out there and every guy runs to the window to yell something. Yeah, it's there is definitely a walk of shame and hurled abuses, to be sure. It's a fairly nasty place. You know, prison's not a it's not a place you want to spend a lot of time. And somebody earlier said, "Why all the racism?" And I'll be honest with you, I am of the firm belief that that's how they want it. That the staff likes it that way, because if I'm hating a black guy and a black guy's hating me, then the blue guy doesn't have to worry about it, right? They're all wearing blue, and they would like us to just fight amongst each other all day, because it's a lot safer if we're doing that. Because if we all got together, it would scare the hell out of them. So they do everything they can to keep us segregated.
Wow.
It's stupid, but it is. And they call it politics, right? They don't call it racism. They have a different word for it. They call it politics.
I tend to think you're right. Probably one of the reasons Twitter was created too, to create division. People, it's better to divide than unite and conquer. But Pickleball Paul again, could you please have this panel back again? I think I want to do a prison, like I told you, like a marathon one day. I just talked to these guys for like 9 hours. We'll crack open some drinks and hang out. Someone's asking, was Charlie greenlit by the Latin Kings? Yes. Surviving the Survivor here. Joel and Carm are in New York City this Sunday at 12:30 p.m. So Cardell, as we start to wind down, tell me, what do you do now? You said you're still working inside. When were you finally released? It sounded like it was on like a change in the law. And what do you do with your life now? What are you doing day to day?
Yes, I was released in 2017. Like I said earlier, during the federal prison time, I spent a lot of that time putting together a blueprint and a plan for when I got released, what I was going to do with my life. So I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of learning, a lot of things. Then when I got released, I put my plan in motion. Was on federal probation for 3 years while I was putting my plan in motion. So the plan I had put in motion was to become a certified empowerment life coach, become a speaker and an author. So I had wrote some books and stuff while I was on federal probation, working as a marketer and promoter in a home improvement product company in all these big stores, generate leads for them. And so when COVID hit, I wrote a book about my life, my mentors, because I couldn't do that work no more when COVID hit. And my mentor challenged me to write a book about my life. I wrote a book called Inmate to Inspiration, sharing my story. And then from that point on, I started a podcast called The Reentry Journey. And then the federal government asked me to be on the speaking tour to go back into prisons and share my story. Wow. So they paid me to do that. And I realized that's what I really want to do. So I started building a personal development reentry program based on the things that I did to make the transformation. So once I built that program, I named it On the Inside Reentry Academy. That reentry starts on the inside of prison and a self. And so I started pitching my programs to get it on the inside of institutions. I got a contract for one of the prisons I was in Missouri to run it. Then I created a virtual side. So I run a virtual side in Arizona as well. Then I go around the country hosting 4-day reentry empowerment workshops in correctional institutions with a team of other successful formerly incarcerated educators. We do goal setting, mental health and wellness, parenting, job readiness, entrepreneurship, reentry resources, and other things. And I also create content for the tablet companies for putting the content inside the prison. So I got like personal development video courses and digital workbooks and things of that nature. So what I do for a living now, I run my own business as a reentry consultant, doing those exact things and helping others formerly incarcerated people who come out who want to build a reentry program, helping them build their reentry programs and putting them in the lane in the position as well. And I mentor probably about 70 people right now that are formerly incarcerated that got out within the last 2 years that's on the verge of putting their life back together.
And that's a real role model right there. Shaquille O'Neal is great and all, but this guy's a real role model. Took his life, turned it around. He's not making $800 million a year, but he's on his way to doing it. And kudos to Cardell for that. For those who do not know, Cardell, as he just said, he did a long time in state and federal prison, caught his first case. He said at 15 years old, walked out of the gates with a blueprint. The book again is From Inmate to Inspiration.
Yeah, Inmate to Inspiration.
And where do we buy the book?
You can buy the book on Amazon, or you can go to my website, cardellsims.com. and go to my shop. My shop on my website is called the Evidence Locker. I have a brand called I Am the Evidence that represents everyone who's been through something. And when someone said that you couldn't do it, or you weren't going to be it, or you weren't going to make it, you did it anyway, and you showed that you are the evidence. And so I got a brand called I Am the Evidence. So on my website, where my products is, it's called the Evidence Locker. There you can get my books. I have 3 books on there, and I also have 2 workbooks for if you got someone who's incarcerated and they want to do personal development or entrepreneurship. I have workbooks for them that they can just work on personally by themselves at their own pace. So that's where you can get my products and my books, either on Amazon or CordellSims.com.
By the way, I have an idea that my mom's going to love, and I can't do it right now, but maybe in 6-8 months, maybe I'll go inside with Cardell if he'll take me when he goes to talk to inmates, and I can see life on the inside, and we can even do a podcast maybe, but I'll talk to Cardell about that off air, and I feel safe with Cardell around me, and plus I'll watch some more UFC, so I'll have some moves in my head in case
There you go.
in case I got to use it. Joe Rojas, he is all you got to know about him. Career more than 30 years, Department of Corrections. He was on the other side as a corrections officer, and that is no easy job. He just recently retired. Joe, your final thoughts tonight. What's Charlie Adelson got to be thinking right now? What's down the road for him?
I'm sure it's going to be lots of stress looking over his back, because you never know he's going to be moved again and again. I'm telling you, his life is a living hell. So, like I said, I think he'll wind up in the feds eventually, one of these dropout units, because going from going from Florida all the way to South Dakota, that's a big move. I'm just telling you, man. I think everybody in this panel said that his life is a living hell, and he will never have peace. He will never have peace. So,
wow, that's gonna give me nightmares, Joe. Thank you. And shout out to Gunnar Lindblom. He's a former criminal mafia enforcer. He was on earlier. Spent 13 years in prison for extortion. His YouTube channel is My Thing: Tales of a Reformed Gangster. He's also the author of To Be a King, Volumes 1 and 2. To Be a King, Volumes 1 and 2. Everyone knows Tommy Scoville. He's got the Lifeboat YouTube channel. He's a recovery expert. He was on the up and up till he was on the down and down, getting in trouble with bank robbery, but he's returned his life around again. Tommy, there was a question that was an interesting one that I just had on the tip of my tongue, but I'm losing my mind because I'm so tired. But while I think of it, Tommy, same question for you. What's Charlie doing tonight, and what is going through that brain of his?
If you've ever seen anybody put feeder fish into a tank, right, where larger fish literally feed off them, that's exactly where he's at. There's no, everybody has said it, but he's going to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. You can't take a shower you enjoy, right? There's no way to, he doesn't have a homeboy that's going to sit and watch while he goes and takes a shower, right? That's not realistic. He's in a living hell. I can't imagine doing time like that. It would be horrific. And I agree. I think he'll end up in the feds, but not before getting stabbed a couple of times or getting beat up a couple of times. His life is going to be going from one prison to another on buses, sitting in the hole, getting beat up, and going to the next one. Right? It's a terrible way to do time, but it happens a lot.
Wow. Modine, I'm getting Cardell's book, followed by Cardell's story is inspiring. I'm going to check out your book. I'm so annoyed because I had a good question for you, Tommy, and I can't remember it. Now I'm stalling to try to remember it, but I am so friggin' fried that I can't remember it. But I'll shoot you the text when it does come back to mind. But a huge right here, it says it all. Karen Pooley. By the way, I love the fact that you guys put best before your names today. Very cool idea. Great show with great guests. Cool. Yeah, have Tommy on more often. Tommy's always got an open invite here. And check out his channel, Lifeboat. Gina here says, great panel. Definitely bring them back. Love having Joe Rojas on as well. takes a lot of courage to turn your life around, a lot of strength. And I admire these guys for doing that. So I appreciate them being here. The book tour continues next week. Now I'm thinking about writing a book, surviving the book tour, because I don't think I am, but my mom might. We are in New York City Sunday. Then we head out to Toronto, and then we're going to Philadelphia. And my mom said she's done after that. I told her there's no way. So there's more stops along the way. Until then, keep an eye out. Follow me on Twitter, podcast STS. Follow me on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor for show updates. Thank you to the STS mods who go above and beyond on the daily. Frankie Figs, Julie Frew, Gen X Granny, Copper Horse, and the best name in all of the YouTubes, Shaquille Oatmeal. Until next time, love you, America. Guests, stick around for 1 second.